Hello and welcome to day 3 of our 5-day career workshop here live on YouTube. I'm so glad that you are joining me again for our 3rd day of our workshop. We have a lot of information to cover today, all about how to interview with confidence and ease. So let me ask you a question. Are you trying to figure out what you might be doing wrong in your job interviews? Or maybe you want to just be extra savvy so that you can better sell yourself during your job interview. So today's workshop is all about how to interview with confidence and ease. So go ahead and chime into the chat. It looks like we have Cindy here already from Cincinnati. Hello, Cindy, and welcome. Chime into the chat and let us know, where are you joining us today from in the world? We're happy that you're jumping in. So even if you are listening to this on a replay, make sure you let us know in the comments below the video where you are joining us today from. Also, if you can hear me and audio is coming through, what I want you to do is go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up so that we can get it out to other people that might not know that we are live right now. So again, today we are talking all about how to interview with confidence and ease. Looks like we have Steve here. Hello, Steve. Welcome. Perfect timing. You have a job interview tomorrow. This is good. This is awesome. Russ is here again. Hello again, Russ from Phoenix, Arizona. Cindy, of course. And then Citizen Buddy from Boston, Massachusetts. Citizen Buddy, I don't know if you were here yesterday, but we actually answered one of your questions from the day before. So thanks for tuning in. Robin's here. Hello, Robin from Portland. And then we also have Steve mentioned he's from Canada. I love that we have Canada representing. Canada is in the house. Fantastic. Again, make sure you give this video a thumbs up before we get started. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, hit the subscribe button below so that you can get notified when we are live again tomorrow and on Friday. So today's workshop was probably the most requested workshop because it's all about interviews. Now, if you haven't ever met me before, or this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Heather Austin. I'm the founder of ProfessorAustin.com and the Career Club on Facebook. If you're not a member yet of the Career Club, take a look at the link below this video. It's a thriving group of ambitious professionals developing a community. It's fantastic. And we're getting close to almost 2,000 members in that group. So you definitely want to make sure you join. And there are some questions that you'll need to answer before you'll be able to come into the group. So make sure you answer those. Now, I've been a university professor for over 13 years, and my goal is to help clients and students build a personal brand so that they can go out there and succeed in the marketplace. So hopefully you're here to do that, and we are going to go ahead and get started. Now, I do have a free download for you if you haven't yet had the chance to take a look at it. Let me pop it up here on the screen, and my team is in the chat, so they will also put it in the chat box for you, and it is linked up below this video. So the free items that you get here today is your free template for a resume if you haven't yet downloaded that. And then you also get an interview guide cheat sheet. We're going to be looking at the interview guide cheat sheet in just a little bit here as we go through our content. Now, I have a lot planned for you today, so we'll try and move through the information as quickly as possible. Jump on over to worldclasscareer.academy, download your free items. Also, you'll get on the VIP list for when I release my new exclusive program coming out on Friday called World Class Career Academy. And this allows you to get a $100 off the program for our early bird enrollment starting on Friday. So go ahead and grab that so that you have it while we are doing our workshop. Now, let me know in the chat, what's your biggest frustration when it comes to job interviews? What is your biggest frustration? I know for me, when I was going through the interview process, it was probably just knowing how to talk about myself and how to explain my accomplishments, and really how to sell myself. When you're not interviewing regularly, or let's say, your current position is in jeopardy, or maybe you just recently resigned or you got laid off and you haven't been interviewing like a lot, it gets a little hairy because you don't know how to introduce yourself. You don't know how to sell yourself to people. So tell me in the chat, what is your biggest frustration when it comes to job interviews? Now, job interviews are one of those things that if you are a job seeker, you need to master, because the job interviews eventually lead to your job offer, right? Out of all the candidates that a hiring manager might be looking at, what are you going to do in your job interview to really stand out? How are you going to stand out from all the others that are interviewing for that same position? Now let's go ahead, and I want to show you a couple things, because we're gonna do 3 steps to this interview process. So get out your favorite notepad, get out your favorite pen and pencil, because we are going to be covering some serious content today when it comes to our job interviews. Now, Russ mentioned in the comments, he says his biggest frustration is coming up with the best answers on the drive home. Yes, I can see that. Cindy says how to sell myself, and that's how I was, and that's how most of my students and clients are, is that they don't know how to sell themselves. So let's get into some solid tips that will help you here. Now I'm going to be sharing 3 steps with you today. 3 steps with you today to help you with your job interview. Now, this is the first of our steps. We are going to be talking about what to do before your interview, what to do during your interview, and then what to do after. So again, we're going to be covering those 3 areas: what to do before your interview, what to do after your interview, and what to do during, and then what to do after your interview. So let's cover what to do before your interview. Now, I'm going to show a slide with a couple steps here. And you can jot these down. We'll jump back to this slide in just a minute, but I first want to talk about our very first step here. This is, again, before our interview, is to do your homework. So what do I mean by doing your homework? So what I mean by this is you want to know and learn as much about the company and the position as you can before interview day. Now, it's surprising to me that a lot of people, they'll do a little bit of research, they'll kind of look on the internet a little bit, maybe learn a little tiny bit about the company, and then they show up and they're really not prepared to answer questions during their interview because they don't fully understand the position. So again, before we can properly sell ourselves, we need to research the company, find out, what is the company, what are their main goals, what are their main values, what is their mission, researching the company as much as you can before you even go into the interview. Now, the other thing you want to do is refine your interview responses to focus on what the company is looking for and what their mission and their vision is. Now let's jump back to the slide for step 2. So step 1 is to do your homework. Step 2 is to take inventory of your accomplishments. So what do I mean by taking inventory of your accomplishments? Basically, what are some of the greatest things that you've done in your work history or education or volunteer work or whatever that might be that helps you stand out? So before interview day, my recommendation is to get and let's see, who was it? Steve, I think, is the one that's going on the interview tomorrow. Is to get a piece of paper and a pencil, jot down 2 or 3 of your most important career accomplishments, and make sure these relate to the position you're applying for. So let's say, I'm going to go apply for a business analyst position. Well, if I'm applying for a business analyst position, the things I'm going to talk about in that interview are going to be slightly different than if I'm going to apply for an accounting position. Okay, so think about your career accomplishments and how they relate to the position you are applying for. Now, keep in mind and write this down if you have access to a notebook and a pen, is that these accomplishments become your career story. So this is just the beginning of you talking or thinking about these, because you're going to talk about them in the interview. Hopefully they are in your resume and your cover letter already, which we're going to be talking more about resumes on Friday. So if you need an updated, refreshed resume, you definitely want to be here on Friday. And then what you're going to do is make notes around your accomplishment. So what are some of the things that make it a great accomplishment? What are some of the quantifiable or measurable results that you might have seen in that accomplishment? Now, again, we'll talk more about this on Friday when it comes to writing your resume, but you want to develop a really compelling story around those accomplishments. And again, remember, we're on step 2. Let me show you the slide one more time. We're still on step 2. Take inventory of your accomplishments. So again, we're just talking about developing a story around those things that you have completed or those accomplishments that you have in your career history. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, but it's a famous saying that facts tell, stories sell. So what I mean by that is that you can give an employer facts all day long. And yes, we do want facts because we want to quantify those. But at the end of the day, what's going to sell yourself is a story. So facts tell, stories sell. You want to develop those compelling stories again around your career accomplishments. Now, let's move on to the third part, or the third thing you're going to do before your interview. We want to prepare responses to common interview questions. Now, this is where our trusty little interview guide cheat sheet comes into play. So this cheat sheet, I share 5 questions that are the most popular questions of all time that you will most likely be asked in an interview. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with all these questions. I do really think that interviewers need to be better trained to ask better questions, because the standard questions, again, I'll give them to you, and they're all in this interview guide cheat sheet. The first one is, well, tell me about yourself. Okay, you'll always get that one in some way or another. The other one you have is, well, why should we hire you? And then the other one, and again, I'm sharing the 5 questions that will most likely be asked. What are your weaknesses? And then again, the opposite to that is, what are your strengths? And then the 5th question that you most likely will be asked is, why do you want to work here? So those are the 5 questions that most of the time come up in an interview. Now, I do again think that interviewers need to be better trained to ask better questions, because I think those questions sometimes they catch you off guard. And in this interview guide cheat sheet, what I do is I give you examples that you can use and kind of tailor to your own career history. Now, also in that cheat sheet, you will see behavioral interview questions. Now, I know I get this question a lot about what is a behavioral, or what we call a situational interview question. So this is a question that you might be asked that is, tell me about a time when you XYZ, or describe a situation where you XYZ. So it's becoming more of a situation. Now, in that interview guide cheat sheet, I explain how to answer those. It's a very, very simple formula that you can use when it comes to the interview, your response to those behavioral questions. So again, that interview guide cheat sheet is so critical. There's 5 main questions on there, plus a bonus section talking all about behavioral interview questions. Okay, so let's move on to step 4 of before your interview. You want to set yourself up for success by pre-planning. Okay, so what do I mean by pre-planning? This is actually really easy, so take notes if you can. Pre-planning actually gives you less anxiety the day of the interview. It helps you calm your nerves so that you're aware of what's going on and not trying to just come up with responses on the fly. You want to plan what you're going to wear. So before interview day, pick out your outfit. Get it all ready, lay it out. I'm sure most of you do that because you guys are all fantastic, ambitious professionals that are here learning today. I'm sure you do that. But in case you forget, make sure you have your outfit planned ahead of time. The other thing you want to do is, how long is it going to take you to get there? So do you have driving? Are you going to run into traffic? Just plan that ahead. Now, if you are doing a video interview, you still have to plan your outfit. You don't have to plan travel time, but what you do have to plan is your equipment. Is your sound working? Is your video working? Are you going to do it on a computer, like a laptop computer? Are you going to be sitting at a desktop? Are you going to be using your phone? All those types of things you need to plan ahead when it comes to video interviews. Now, I will leave a couple minutes at the end of this for you guys to ask questions. Okay, so step 5 of before our interview is to create a set of questions to ask your interviewer. So creating a set of questions, let me display that a little bit longer. Create a set of questions to ask your interviewer. Creating a set of questions is such a great way to, it actually eliminates some of those nerves that you might have during interview day, because it creates a two-sided conversation. So rather than you sitting down and interviewing with the company, you're actually interviewing them too. You really need to find out, is this company a company I'm going to really enjoy? I can stay for a little bit of time, 2 years, 1 year, whatever that might be. Is this a company I can commit to and really be here? So when it comes to those questions that you want to ask, just, ask, you don't want to go in and saying, well, tell me about this position. Okay, never do that, because that shows them that you haven't even really researched the position. Know the position first, and if you have a specific question you can ask them during the interview about the position as it relates to some task, yes, you can do that, but don't say, tell me about the position. Some of the questions that you can ask, though, and write this down if you want. What are some things you like about working for this company? So now you're asking them, what do you like about this? The other thing you can say is tell them in your own words how you see the position, and then ask them, hey, did I miss anything? And then another question I really like is, what have other employees done to succeed in this position? Okay, so this really opens up that dialogue. So again, before our interview, do your homework, take inventory of your accomplishments, prepare your responses to common interview questions, and again, refer to the cheat sheet for common interview questions that might be asked. Number 4, set yourself up for success by pre-planning, and then create a set of questions to ask your interviewer. Okay, let's move on to step 2 of our 3 steps to our interview. Remember, we're talking about what to do before your interview, what to do during, and what to do after. So we're going to cover what to do during your interview. So you kind of have some steps to follow before your interview. So if you have one coming up, get those steps in order for yourself as fast as possible, okay? Now, let's talk about what to do during your interview. So this is step 2, what to do during your interview. And again, if you have questions, my team is here. They are pulling together a document for me with some of your questions that you might have. So feel free to pop those into the chat, and then I will get to those at the end. So what to do during your interview. So when it comes to your interview, and I know you've probably heard me say this before, body language is a big deal. Body language is a big deal when it comes to your interview. In fact, let me show you a quick slide here. 93% of your communication with your interviewer is nonverbal. So what does that mean? That means they are looking at your body language. They're looking at how you're moving, if you're fidgeting, if you're crossing your arms, if you have, they're looking to see if you are an open and honest communicator, really is what they're doing. And not that they're doing it intentionally. This is all subconscious, but 93% of our communication is nonverbal. So what that means is they are looking at what you're saying, they're looking at your body language rather than what you're saying. So let's talk about during the interview, a couple items when it comes to the interview. And we're going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail. So the first one is to give a great handshake. So when it comes to your handshake, you want it to be firm. You want to match your interviewer's grip, but you don't want it to be too too hard, because that's going to signify that, oh, this person might be a little bit overbearing. Now, if you have a floppy handshake on the other hand, so if you're just like, oh, let's shake hands, this tells them that you might be a pushover. So you practice handshakes with people, just to kind of get an idea of how is your handshake, because again, before you go to that interview, they are looking at your body language. So that is one of the most important parts. Now, the next one is to sit up straight. Okay, so if I'm talking to someone, I want my posture, so that's number 2, I want my posture to be long and tall. Okay, I don't want to slump forward, because as I'm slumping forward, it's just kind of showing that I'm careless or maybe indifferent about the position. So if I'm sitting up straight, but I'm relaxed, so I don't want to be tense, but if I'm a little bit more relaxed, and I can even angle toward the interviewer a little bit to show my interest and to kind of hold the conversation and hold their interest as well. Okay, number 3 to this is maintain good eye contact. So you don't want to be, if you're interviewing with your person, you don't want to be glancing around at distractions or things that might be going on, or even looking at your phone. In fact, don't even take your phone in or turn it on silent or turn it off before you even go into the interview. You don't want any distractions, because that's going to take away from that good solid eye contact. Now, you don't want to just sit and stare at them and, kind of like scare them off, right? But hold their gaze for a little bit, and then feel free to, look down or look wherever, I'm not going to analyze, like, if you look up, that means you're telling a lie, or and I don't know if people really do that. I know that is a thing, because I've trained under a body language expert before. But just be yourself. Try and be your natural self. Now, the 4th thing to this is don't fidget. I know that it's hard to fidget, and let me know in the chat. Do you fidget during interviews? And what I mean is, like, is it hard for you to, like, not rub your hands or like tap the desk, or like even another fidget is tapping your foot, or when someone's like cross-legged or just sitting there like shaking their leg, right? Have you ever done that before? So let me know in the chat. Are you a fidgeter or not fidgeter? Like, do you feel like you can hold still? So you want to avoid that. If you are a fidgeter, try your hardest to sit still with your feet on the ground, planted forward in front of you. Don't shake. Don't take a pencil and tap it, or anything like that. Just keep a nice straight posture and no fidgeting. Okay, next one here is to use your natural hand and eye movements. And I actually think what I meant to say here is arm movements. So natural hand and eye and arm movements. So it's okay to use your arms during the interview to explain a situation. Sort of, I'm a mover. I like to move around a lot when I'm talking, and I stand up, and so I use my arm. Now, in an interview, I might not be as expressive. I would still express, but maybe not as much. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, but for women, make sure when you're sitting down, try and cross at your ankle rather than at the top of your leg, because if you have to make a move in your chair, if you're crossed at the ankle, it's less obvious. So it's not going to show as much. And again, remember, they are looking at your body language. All those cues are so important. Okay, the last thing to this, number 6, before we jump into what to do after your interview, is to smile. So I'm a big, huge proponent of this. There have been studies done time and time again that if you smile, it makes people think you know what's going on. So give this a try when you're at the grocery store next time. If you're walking down the aisle with your groceries and your cart, and you just smile, people think that you work there, or that you own the store, or that you know something that's going on. Like they might say, hey, I can't find, the beans. Do you know what aisle those beans are in? Like, if you smile, people think that you know what's happening. You know what's going on. So make sure you get that smile in there. Okay, let me jump into the chat really quick and just make sure everyone is with us. Nate is here. Hello. Oh, Nada. Or Nada. I think that's how you say your name. I'm so sorry. She says, I'm having a hard time downloading the cheat sheet. My team will hopefully get that figured out for you so that you can get it before the end of this workshop. Let's see. Raby says, if they ask, what is your weakness, points in your personality? So refer to that cheat sheet. So the weakness question, you don't ever want to say something like, oh, my biggest weakness is I'm a perfectionist. Okay. That's definitely not what you want to do. Or, oh, my biggest weakness is that I am a hard worker. You really want to have a legitimate weakness, but don't have it relate to the position. Okay, so if you're applying again for an accounting position, you don't want your weakness to be with numbers, okay? But maybe your weakness might be with like presenting in person to a large group of people. And that's okay because it doesn't relate to that position. So again, pick a legitimate weakness, but don't pick something that is needed for that position. Good question. Good interaction in the chat. Thanks, you guys. Looks like my team is working on making sure you guys get the cheat sheet. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about our last step. So our last step in the interview process is what to do after your interview. What to do after your interview. So I want to ask something in the chat to everyone. Do you follow up? Have you guys followed up after your interview, or are you good at following up? So let me know this. Let me know in the chat. Give me a yes if you're good at following up after an interview, or give me a no if you're not very good at following up after your interview. Are you good at following up after your interview or not? Now, follow-up is a really big part to this, but it's a little bit more than that. So follow-up is one of those things that is essential in today's job market. Now, I'm going to give you a couple ways that a follow-up can happen. A follow-up can happen in the form of a handwritten thank you note. Now, I work with a lot of clients that are in other parts of the world and, in European countries and all over, and handwritten notes are really big in their part of the world. And that's something that catches someone's attention right away. I like handwritten thank you notes after interviews because I feel like it shows that you took that extra step. So you have you can follow up with a handwritten thank you note. You can also follow up with a LinkedIn message. Now, if you missed yesterday's training, we talked all about using LinkedIn. So make sure you take a look at that because we do talk a little bit about how to reach out to a hiring official to follow up with them, whether it be through a LinkedIn message or maybe you have the in-mail feature on LinkedIn. You can use that as well. The other form of follow-up would be a personal email. So let's say after the interview, you got the business cards to everyone that you met with, which is always what I recommend doing. If not the business cards, know their name, know something about them, and know their email address before you leave the building or before you finish the interview, whether it's a video interview or whatever that might be, so that you can write a specific note to each person. Now, depending on the group of people, if it was a panel interview and you interviewed with like 10 people, I don't know if that's necessarily realistic to send all of them a follow-up, but choose the people that you know will be making the decision, the top tier decision makers, and follow up with them. Okay, so it looks like, let's see, Citizen Buddy says yes, very good at follow-up, good. Cindy, yes, thank you note, she says is what she likes to send. Steve says, I was told not to follow up by my recruiter as they said they handle all of that, but I have never ever really followed up. So I guess I'd say I'm not terrible at that. So Steve, if you are working with a recruiter and they know the company and they have specific ties or information that they're sharing with you, depending on your relationship with that recruiter, if you feel like, yes, I can trust this individual and they have my best interest at heart, which most of them do, you can normally follow their guidance, but I still think follow-up is a pretty big deal. Nada, and I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right, says, I send the thank you note, but not as good with following up about the results. Yes, and we're going to talk about even getting further, just not just one follow-up, but we're going to keep going with that. Kwan says, I tried following up, but no response. Had one interview before using the first workshop following up with applications I submit. Got 2 companies saying I can be considered for future roles. Yay, super exciting. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. And then Omar, and we'll jump to your question, says, how can I get a job right out of college without internships or experience? Let's go ahead, Team Heather Austin, and let's pop that into our question database so that we can answer that in just a minute. Okay, so after your interview, again, we just talked about follow-up. This is done within 24 hours. So as soon as you get done, I would start composing this message right away. I don't know if I would send it immediately, like within the first minute or two, give them time to maybe like an hour, 2 hours after the interview. But then let's go to step 2, send a follow-up to each person you interviewed with. Now, this could be, again, like I said, if you're in a group interview and it's a smaller group interview and it was maybe 3 or 4 people, that totally makes sense. If you're in a larger group, I would pinpoint those key decision makers and I would follow up with them. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you get their business card and all their contact information so that you can follow up when it's all said and done. The third part to this is to express your gratitude. So you got to think about, in terms of their situation, they're interviewing candidates, they're trying to find the best fit for this position for their company. You want to make sure you're telling them that you appreciate the time that they spent with you, that you appreciate getting to know the company better, getting to know the individuals or the team that you might be working on. So you really want to bring that into your follow-up, either if it's a thank you note that you write, or if it's an email or a LinkedIn message, talk to them and say, hey, I really enjoyed our time together. I enjoyed, some of the things you could say is, I enjoyed discussing the possibility of, working with your organization, and then mention the position you'd be working in. Also mention, this is one thing that I really like to recommend, is mention something that you learned from the interview that caught your attention. So maybe something that, let's say all the other candidates are sending thank you notes or follow-ups. What is something that you can mention in there that they might not be talking about? So what is something that really impressed you about the company? Was it a value that came through in the interview? Was it that someone mentioned their mission and that, something to that effect? So make sure that you're really talking about what impressed you the most that happened in the interview. Okay, number 4 after your interview is to remind them why you are the best candidate. So again, let's pretend everyone else is sending follow-ups. Why are you the one that they should select? And again, we've talked a little bit about what to do before your interview. We talked a little bit about what to do during your interview. If you can get these steps right, and you can really hone in on how you are the perfect fit, you want to reiterate that in the thank you or in the follow-up. So talk about a skill that you possess that you think might be superior to everyone else. Maybe it's something specific that only you can do, or maybe it's something specific that you do well. So you want to express, what your accomplishments are and how they relate to the position. And then here's another little tip is talk a little bit about their pain points. So what are some of the problems that the company is facing, and how can you solve those problems? Now, again, we're doing this in our resume. We're doing this in our cover letter. We're talking about this already in our LinkedIn profile. So this is kind of like the cherry on the top, because you're telling them, you're just reiterating all that stuff that's already out there about you and what you've said in the interview, and you're bringing it back home and just talking about how you can really help them. Okay, number 5, and then we're going to jump over to some questions, is show your personality. So I can't tell you enough how important it is for you to be yourself and show your personality during the interview. Now, there's other statistics out there and things that have been reported that say that interviewers will hire based on personality rather than skill set. And I know I shared one of my stories the other day about me going in and requesting an informational interview and getting hired on the spot when I was not qualified. I did not have the skills and the qualifications that all the other people that were being hired for that position had. But what I did is I showed my personality and I showed them my initiative to learn. And even though I didn't have a handful of the skills that they needed, they saw that I was willing to learn those skills so that I could excel in that position. So again, that all comes down to showing your personality. Now, I want to remind you guys really quickly about tomorrow's training. So I've had a lot of individuals talk a little bit about, I just don't know what I want to do, or, I'm in a position and I want to switch things up. I want to make a pivot in my career. The position I'm in might not be the best fit for me right now. I kind of want something a little bit different. So tomorrow, we are talking about how to find your true career calling by leveraging your skills and abilities. So make sure you join me for tomorrow's training, how to find your true career calling by leveraging your skills and abilities. And we're going to be talking more about really how to showcase who you are as an individual to an employer. Okay, the other thing too, and then we're going to jump into questions. Make sure that you go ahead and grab the interview guide cheat sheet as well as the 6-second resume template, so that we're going to use the 6-second resume template over the next couple of days. The interview guide cheat sheet gives you the top 5 questions that you might be asked, plus an example of behavioral interview questions. Hopefully you guys are able to get in and get that downloaded. And I know that my team is working on that and on the back end. Thank you so much. My team, his name is Richard, if you guys want to say hi to him. He's working on the back end, getting all of this, answering questions in the chat and multitasking to make sure you guys get the cheat sheet and the resume template. Also, you'll get on the list to receive $100 off when World Class Career Academy launches on Friday. Now, enrollment's not open yet for this program, but it will start on Friday. So let's go ahead and do a couple of questions. What questions do you have? Let me pop this up. What questions do you have that I can answer for you? I'm gonna pop over to the questions that you've asked already, and we'll get into that, and then I'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow again. Okay, let's see. Looks like Veronica, you might have been early to the chat because you're question number 1. It says, hi from Peru. Hello. I do have the preparation. Awesome. Good. But sometimes I get stuck in nervous and spoil the interview with wrong answers. Oh my goodness. Veronica, you're not alone. This is something that happens to all of us, even the best of interviewers, especially if we are really wanting the position. And if the clock is ticking and we need this position ASAP, and we are, it's something that we feel as a great fit, it's really easy to get caught off guard and start rambling. So this is what my recommendation is. Again, preparation is super key. So if you follow those steps that I shared earlier to preparing, that helps you kind of ease the nerves a little bit. But then, Veronica, I want you to take it one step further and do a mock interview with someone. Like, have a family member sit down with you and ask you, tell me about yourself, Veronica, and give them an answer, or have them ask you specific interview questions and rehearse them back and forth. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because practice makes perfect. So if you're not interviewing a lot, or you're kind of starting the interview process, the more you can practice the interview, the better. And Veronica, I have one more tip for you, and hopefully this can help others as well. One more tip would be to go on as many interviews as you can, even if you find a position that might not be perfect, but that you think, oh, I could probably interview for that. And maybe a position that your heart's not totally invested in. And, if you didn't get it, it would be okay. It wouldn't be the end of the world. The reason why I recommend doing this again is because the practice is so valuable. So when I team up with people and I'm helping them on their job search, it's so baffling to me because they've been on a couple interviews and they think, oh my gosh, I've got this. I know what I need to do. But then they get to like the fourth or fifth, they've gone on 5 interviews, and it's like a totally different world after you've been on 3 or 4 or 5 interviews than 1 or 2. It's kind of like it's like exercise. It's exercising a muscle, and that muscle is interviewing. So go on as many interviews as you can, and that will definitely help you get that nervous energy out. Okay, Omar, awesome question. How can I get a right job out of college without an internship or experience? So, Omar, I think what happens, because this is what happens to most university graduates, is you're just kind of getting started. So when I first got out of college, I got a job, and it was an okay job. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't my pie in the sky. I love this job, but what it did for me is it allowed me to get my foot in the door and move up in the company. So if there's even a position in there that they'll take you because you're a college graduate, and you might have, some of your academic honors or accomplishments that you can mention in your interviews. I would say to work your way up as time goes on. It's not always, when you're first coming out of college, networking is key. Networking with your teachers, networking with career counselors, networking with other classmates to really help you find that position. And it's okay if you get into something and then you gradually work your way up. Okay, Raby says, they ask, how do you guess your salary and what should I answer? And then here's another one, Raby, from you. What should you say if the interviewer asks you if you have any questions for them? Okay, let's answer the first one. The first one about salary. So how do you? So what I think you're saying is, if they're asking you about salary and you say, how do you guess your salary? Now, before you go into a position, you most likely kind of have a general idea of what the salary will be. Now, there's a lot of resources and tools out there that you can use to research salaries for specific companies or just specific positions. I would recommend doing that first before you jump into your interview. Now, here's the thing. In the United States, there's laws being passed, probably right as we speak, but where an employer can't ask you about your salary. And in some states, they can still do this. So you'll have to do some research depending on what state you might live in if you're in the United States. But a lot of states, they're passing these laws. It's not a lot, but it's a handful, where they can't ask you about your salary, like what would you like to make, or what was they can't ask you about your past salary. So what do you make now, or what did you make in the past at this position? So really just kind of do a little bit of research on the exact position you're applying for and what that general salary base is. And then your other question is asking questions for them. Yes, you always want to have questions. Don't ever go into an interview without questions. I talked a little earlier about what questions you should ask during your interview. Make sure you, if you jumped into the middle of this, make sure you go back and look at that portion of it. So some of the questions, you can always ask the person, what did they like about the company? You could also ask them, what has someone else done in this position to really succeed? You could ask them about what type of team will you be working on and what projects, does the team lead on, or whatever that might be. But yes, have some questions available before interview day. Okay, and your name, I'm looking, your name is spelled Robbie. Okay, so sorry. I'm not good at pronouncing names. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Steve says, biggest frustration, how to explain the fact that I haven't worked in over a year, and then the best answer for weaknesses question. So Steve, I talked a little bit about the weaknesses question earlier. To answer your question about not working in over a year. So that's a gap. That would consider like a career break or a gap. Now, when it comes to that, you want to make sure you kind of have a career story built around that. So why haven't you worked in over a year? So make sure you have kind of like the reasons behind that. And then what have you been doing in that year that you haven't been working? Now, if it has been, to take care of a sick parent, or maybe you were injured, or, what are some other things? Were you able to do a continuing education class? Did you have to organize, like doctor's visits or whatever that might be? Because that does take time and effort and organization. So think about some of those things that you've done, and build a career story around that. Kathy, hello. So Kathy says, recent interview was given 10 questions at the beginning. Wow. Okay. Knowing the 5 technical questions I didn't know, what do you do in this situation? Could I have started with, I don't know some of the questions, but I know this. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. When you say you were given 10 interview questions, was it like a rapid fire? I'm kind of thinking, Kathy, maybe you can clarify in the chat. Was it a rapid fire like phone interview and you just had to answer quickly, or was it more of like a sit down interview? So make sure that that's kind of like what I'm wondering is what. Sorry, I'm getting some messages from my team. I was just looking at that. So that would be kind of my second question to that is, what types of questions were they, and what kind of format? So I'm not opposed to saying, can I come back to that question? I am a big proponent, of course, of being 100% prepared for any question that might come up, but I'm also not opposed to saying like, can I come back to that one? Good question, Kathy. Okay, Tadara says, how do you tailor your resume to the job description to get past ATS? Such a great question. We are going to be talking to Dara on day 5. So on Friday, hopefully you can join me. This exact topic we are covering in our training. So I'm gonna show you an exact method, and it's pretty simple. You'll be amazed at how simple this is. How you can take what's in the job posting and how you can tailor your resume to that. Okay, let's see. Any other comments? I know that we've had a lot of questions come through. We've done some fantastic digging into some of those questions. Looks like we got a lot of them answered. Make sure you guys, you're here. You join me tomorrow for our workshop. We have some fantastic things planned. If you are looking at how to find your career calling by leveraging your skills and your abilities, you definitely want to join me tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off with you guys today. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Hopefully you're not getting sick of looking at me for all these days in a row. And hopefully you're learning some fantastic information here that will help you on your journey to advance in your career. So I appreciate your time, and I will see you all tomorrow.